Welcome to Carry the Load's Lessons from the Front. I'm Todd Boeding, and in just a moment I'm going to introduce you to Milton Williams, a Dallas Fire Department veteran and Carry the Load ambassador. Milton found his way to us after years of grieving for both his best friend Vince Davis and his lieutenant Todd Boeding, both of whom died in the line of duty. We talk about how their deaths impacted him, the dangers of fighting fires, and some of the misconceptions of being a fireman. Carry the Load is humbled to have played a part in Milton's healing so he could continue to celebrate them and honor their sacrifice for others. I hope you enjoy our discussion as much as I did, and if you do, please make sure to share these stories with just 2 of your friends, because the sacrifice of such honorable men as Vince Davis and Todd Boeding should never be taken for granted. Milton Williams.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Long time fan, long time partner with Carry the Load, long time firefighter. You're a chef,
Yeah.
husband, father. You got
All
a lot
that.
going on.
More than I realize sometimes.
So when did you first get involved with Carry the Load?
Well, that would be 2013.
2013.
Yeah. So this is what, 9 years from now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what brought you to Carry the Load?
Oh man, that story is one that I really enjoy telling. In 2011, August 2011, I lost a good close friend of mine and my officer, Lieutenant Todd Boeding, in an apartment fire over in the section of Oak Cliff in Dallas, a fire that I was fighting. And that broke me. You know, I've experienced line of duty deaths before, but that one was a guy who I trained, and then he became my officer. And like I said, that broke me. After that, I'm sitting probably a year after that. I was sitting at home, and a commercial came on WFFA Channel 8 News about Carry the Load. And the promo that they were shooting, they showed these gentlemen, these soldiers, who were walking up and down this path carrying some ruck packs.
Mm-hmm.
And I also saw some guys carrying some heavy equipment. And at the end of that video, it said, "Who are you carrying?" And at that point, I was feeling really, really low. But that struck me. And I realized that I was carrying the weight of this guy's death. Like carrying it very, very heavy on me. And I said, "Now I think I want to do that." And so that year was at Rivershine Park. I gathered 9 of my crewmates, and we went out with our firefighting gear, with our tanks, hose packs, and we walked up and down that trail for about 6-7 hours. And after that, I felt inspired. I felt I was enlightened. I felt like everything that I had been carrying since his death was starting to pull off of my shoulders. And realized that was going to help heal me.
Was that the first time you'd experienced death as a fireman?
No, actually 2 years prior. Oh, I'm sorry, not 2 years. 9 years prior to that, I lost my best friend in the fire department in an apartment fire in the same section of Oak Cliff. And but I wasn't there when he died. I was off work that day.
So is that, I'm assuming that was the difference then, is that you were there.
No, that was the difference. I was there, but I was there, and I saw the whole thing. I actually helped rescue him out of the building. So yeah, I would say, yeah, that was the difference.
When Lieutenant Todd Boeding, who is a huge fixture now within the Carry the Load community, you guys have done a fantastic job as nonprofit partners.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm gonna back up and say this: y'all have done a fantastic job keeping his legacy going, but y'all have done a fantastic job getting your arms around the whole aspect of Carry the Load and what it means. I mean, you zeroed in on, who are you carrying, and that question is what I've always loved about that question, is that it's also a call to action. You answered that call to action.
Absolutely.
But there was something that happened on that day that struck you differently than losing your best friend in a fire. And so can you take us through what happened that day that so people can get a sense for, exactly why it had such an impact on them.
Okay. So Sunday morning, usually weekends are, it's usually pretty relaxed around the stations. Most of the senior staff are off on the weekends. Well, I was one of the senior staff, and I happened to be at the station that day, and I was going to be driving my lieutenant that morning, but he said, come to me and said, hey, we got a young guy that we want to get some training. Let's let him drive that day. Typically we ride on a piece of equipment called the truck. That's a truck where we do rescue and extrication. Figured, it's going to be a slow day. We'll let him drive. Around about 3:30 that afternoon, we got a call to an apartment fire. Thinking it wasn't going to be much of anything. We were discussing how we're going to, handle ourselves when we get to this particular emergency. Of course, when we got there, there happened to be a fire. And
so you weren't necessarily expecting a fire, even though there's an alarm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of the times we get called out to a fire, there may not be a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes there is. That particular time, there was a fire. And we had some very young guys on our crew that day. So my lieutenant took the guy he had with him and took him to the roof. And I took another young guy. It had only been about a month. I took him inside the apartment with me to go working on the fire. And fire was just about out, and we heard a call for a mayday, which means that someone is trapped or someone is injured. And
when you say you get a call, is that over the radio? Is that just someone yelling from the building?
It's usually a call on the radio. So there's usually one individual, they holler, mayday, 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 which means that there is someone trapped, injured, imminent danger. And so we start to evacuate the structure and go into rescue mode. And turned out it was my lieutenant who had fallen through the roof of the apartment fire where we were fighting. And he became trapped in the attic. And it took us a while to find him, but when we found him, he was clinging to life. Where it struck me so hard is that on a normal day, if I was driving him, that would have been he and I on the roof. It very well could have been me. That was the person that fallen through the roof.
So is there a little bit of survivor's guilt that comes in there?
I think at times it does. Yeah, I think at times it does. Yeah.
It's actually a very common theme. You talk to certain people. I mean, I've done several episodes where people have said something similar. It could have been me. It should have been me. I thought it was going to be me. Why wasn't it me? And so that explains a lot. Why it struck you so differently. I've never heard you tell that story before. I knew that he was your lieutenant, and you obviously had a great deal of respect for him. I know some of my Marines probably would have wished I'd fallen through the roof of a building, but you obviously had him. You had a great deal of respect for him, differently than just some guy who's signing off on your performance evaluation.
Right. So, and to expound on that, it's not just a great deal of respect. He was my friend. We worked together for about 12 years, and typical morning at the fire station. We have to be at the fire station. Shift change starts at 6:30, and we go into action about 7 a.m. Well, Lieutenant Crowell and I, we made it a habit of getting to the station around about 5:30. Get there, we start a pot of coffee, which firefighters do every single morning. We sit around and we talk about anything. Well, between he and I, we talked a lot about sports, football, baseball. We love baseball. And so that became a morning routine. That was, he died on August 11th, 2011.
Okay.
Can't forget that. I'm sorry. August the 14th, 2011.
Okay.
So the days following his death, there was a huge void missing for me. I still get to work at 5:30. I go in, I start a pot of coffee, but Lieutenant Crodle wasn't there. And we weren't there to talk about football or talk about baseball or talk about our children or, just shoot the breeze, as we like to call it. And days after that, I just, you expect to see somebody walk around that corner, and some mornings I would expect to see him coming, and he wasn't coming.
So when you found him, what was going through your mind?
When I initially found him, I thought he was just stuck. Because when we found him, he had tried to kick through the ceiling because he fell from the roof into the attic, and he tried to kick his way through the ceiling, and we saw his legs hanging out. So I thought, oh, he's just stuck. Or, matter of fact, I didn't even know it was him at first. I thought it was somebody else. And I said, okay, he's stuck. Let's get him out. Unfortunately, he was not only stuck, but he was clinging to life.
So that was, whenever you paint a picture like that, there's all kinds of thoughts that go through your head. And I know that you were actually trained as a paramedic as well.
Yeah.
So seeing life-threatening situations like this, you were used to it. I mean, you'd seen it before. But this is obviously, is there a way to compartmentalize the fact that this is not just a senior man in the fire department, but a friend? Is there a way to compartmentalize that as a paramedic?
So you try to, when we have emergencies, we go into automatic mode because we know what to do. But when it's somebody that you love, care about, somebody you know personally, sometimes that goes out the window, and you're trying to figure out, what do I need to do right now? Give you an example. When we realized that he wasn't just trapped, that he was barely clinging to life, and I keep saying that because that is the manner in which we found him. Had to go retrieve equipment to get him out. And as I'm going down to our apparatus to grab the equipment I needed, I couldn't figure out what I needed to get.
Because your head was...
Because my head was absolutely spinning. And at one point, when we finally got the right equipment, got the equipment started, because when we had problems with the equipment, it wouldn't, like a chainsaw we had, it wouldn't stay cranked. Oh, had to go get another one. Go back up. Now he is trapped in the attic. He's tangled up in lots of wires, lots of cables, may have been electrical wires. But at that point, I wasn't thinking, well, I'm getting ready to cut through some electrical cables. I just started cutting, and whatever I could cut, I was cutting. And so we could get him out. And once we got him out, and we had him down inside the apartment where we were able to work on him, I was completely exhausted as my adrenaline was going probably 1,000 miles an hour. And there were so many guys around him, and all I was wanting to do was just to make sure we could get him up, stand him up, walk him outside until he could get some fresh air. Not knowing that he wasn't going to get up and walk out.
That's heavy. So did he pass there at the scene?
No, I don't believe so. He still had life in him when we got him to the ambulance and got him to the hospital. And at that point, we found out probably about an hour or two later that he didn't make it.
So you said you were broken as a result of that. And one of the things that we say at Carry the Load is, we want to celebrate the lives of Lieutenant Crodle and all those who have made such a huge sacrifice so that others may enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. But you can't celebrate their life until a healing takes place. How long did it take you to heal through participation in Carry the Load, walking with others, talking about it, purging yourself emotionally?
So this happened August 2011. I didn't see the actual video of Carry the Load until 2013.
So for
Sitting on
2
my couch.
years, you were dealing with this.
Pretty close to 2 years I was dealing with this. And just to give you an example of how broken I was, when my best friend died, I reconciled his death in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
But when and I can't sit here and tell you why I didn't feel this way toward my best friend, other than the fact that I was there, when my lieutenant passed.
Mm-hmm.
But I was broken to the point that I didn't know if I wanted to do this job again. And at that time, I think I had, by 2011, I had close to 25 years on.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start the math here. When did you join Dallas Fire, or when did you become a fireman?
So I became a firefighter in December of 1985.
85.
Mm-hmm.
And then, have you always been in the Dallas Fire Department, or had you always been, or did you start with another department?
No, I've always only with the Dallas Fire Department.
Okay.
So I did a little over 33 years with Dallas Fire. Certainly wasn't a job that I always wanted to do. I kind of actually got forced into it by my older brother.
Okay.
I needed a job. I was at home. I was a college dropout and living at home with my mom.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from the Panhandle part of Texas, outside Amarillo.
Are you really?
Yes.
Never seen you in a pair of boots.
Oh, trust me, I've got plenty.
I know you do. If you're from up in the Panhandle, you absolutely do.
Yes.
So, and then how'd you get to Dallas?
So my mom moved here. She was a nurse.
Okay.
And
so you've got that in your blood.
Right.
Okay.
So in the 1973, I believe it was, we relocated to Dallas. I was 11 years old.
Okay.
Trust me, I did not want to live in Dallas. I'm a country boy, but Dallas grew on me. So now it's home.
There's something about this place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So where specifically in the Panhandle?
There's a small town called Memphis, right off Highway 287.
Memphis, Texas.
Yes.
I'll be darned. Okay. So you moved here in 1973, which means you're about 10 years old.
Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to out your age or anything, but I mean, for crying out loud, you're older than me and you look younger than me. So I don't know. I mean, let me have my shot there.
Yeah.
So you move here when you're about 10 years old. Dallas becomes your new home, obviously. You said you dropped out of college, which is something that many of us do that end up serving.
Yeah.
What were you initially going to school to do?
Wanted to be an architect.
You wanted to be an architect?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
So
I wanted to build buildings instead of instead of going and putting the fires out.
Okay. Okay. And why on earth, what took you to that route? I mean, why'd you want to be an architect?
Well, my brother used to draw.
Okay.
And my brother was everything to me. And he drew. Anything, if it was a car, person, a bike, whatever, he drew. And so I followed in his footsteps.
Older brother, I'm assuming.
Older brother. Yeah, he's 3 years older than me. So he'd draw, I'd draw. He'd play football, I'd go play football. Well, I got drug into football, but I wanted to play. At some point I wanted to play, but I got drug into that as well. And so,
I'm going to guess you probably were not a quarterback. You're too damn big to be a quarterback.
No, I wasn't a quarterback. I was actually a defensive end until I was a wide receiver.
Okay,
because I was only coming out of high school. I weighed 170 pounds.
Wait, what?
Yes.
How tall were you?
I was probably 6'3" coming out of high school.
6'3", 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Man, you had me by about 5 inches. 5 inches, and I had you by 5 pounds.
Well, I ended up on the defensive line, but there was this thing about, you got to be gritty. And I wasn't gritty.
Okay.
I didn't want to hit.
Really?
I ended up getting moved to safety.
Okay.
I found my home at safety.
Okay. Well, you got to do some hitting at safety too.
Just not a whole lot,
Where'd you grow up in Dallas?
I grew up in Oak Cliff.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereabouts?
Well, my mom moved a lot, so I was all over.
Okay.
Yeah. So mostly the southern part of Oak Cliff. But we call it South Oak Cliff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad actually grew up in Keys Park.
Know it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple years ago though.
Yeah.
That was back when there were no. By the time I was old enough to know what was what and where, Keys Park had become a lot of ball fields.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time he takes me to a game there, he says, "Man, never thought I'd see ball fields here. This is where we did all our hunting growing up."
Right.
So it was just nothing but woods. So you, I kind of derailed this a little bit. You were starting to talk about your best friend, when he passed away. And is this somebody you grew up with or somebody you became good friends with in the?
Yeah. So we became good friends in the fire service.
Okay. And I was actually asking you about the ability to compartmentalize certain things as a paramedic. And well, actually, you're talking about you were feeling a little broken, more so than when your friend had died. Before I cut you off and sent us down another path, so I apologize.
No worries.
So, what was it over those 2 years? I mean, when you say you were just broken, I want to go back to that because this is a really important point for people who've never been to carry the load, but may have had a similar experience to yours. Define what you mean by you were broken for those 2 years.
So, excuse me. Go back a little bit. When my best friend died, like I said, I was able to reconcile his death in my own way. Thought he had a purpose and he served that purpose. My lieutenant died. I don't know, and maybe I was still carrying some of the weight of Vince Davis is his name. He was a former Olympian, great track athlete. So I may have been carrying some of the pain of his death. Like I said, we were very close. And like I said, the lieutenant died. And when we said I was broken, and I'll just go back to this, is that I didn't feel like I wanted to do this job again. I didn't feel, I had, in 2000, I lost my first wife. She was 38. I had 2 girls with her. And 2 years after that, my best friend dies. And subsequently, I started having other losses, that were none related to the fire department, but nonetheless. And so it may have just been an accumulation of all of that. But then again, like I said, with Lieutenant Crodel, I was there. I saw everything happen. I helped rescue him. And I just remember sitting at home one day saying, I don't think I want to do this job again. I don't think I want to do this. I'm tired of losing people. I'm tired of losing friends. And so I always say that when you go into a fire, guys, we always hear this term, go-getters. And trust me, there are some that are on the department that are go-getters. And being a firefighter was more to me than just fighting fire. It was about serving the community. When you go into a fire, for me, I had a sense of what I call healthy fear. And if I need to explain that, I can. Because fire is a living, breathing thing. It's nothing to play around with.
Got to respect it.
You got to respect it. And so that's what I mean by having a healthy fear.
Sure. I
knew how to do my job very well. And trust me, I've been in fires. I've been burned before. And I've come out. So that's healthy fear. Because I do my job and I do well, and I don't take chances. So after Lieutenant Crodel's incident, I was afraid. I was afraid of leaving my kids. I was afraid of leaving my wife because I remarried. I was afraid of leaving the people that I cared about and they cared about me. And I was, hesitant. Times when, about a few weeks after his death, we had another fire, house fire, a torn down structure, and we had to get on the roof. And even though we had new protocols in place, I was hesitant.
I can understand why, though. I mean, so if that was only 3 weeks later, you find yourself on a roof, and the roof is the very thing that you associate his death with. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm assuming you faced the fear and you dealt with it, or was it something that lingered through the rest of your career?
I think at times it did linger, but I think I want to say I was always cautious, but I think I became more cautious. And to give you an example, um, Lieutenant Crodle's incident wasn't the first incident we had experienced that year. Several months earlier, we had another firefighter fall through a roof and was severely burned. And he was an experienced firefighter. He lived. Fortunately for him, when he fell through the roof, he fell right where the firefighters were attacking the fire. And they were able to rescue him and drag him out. And he was burned significantly over his body, but he recovered and went back to work. However, when he went back to work, it took him a while before he went back on the roof. He went into a new position where he didn't have to go on the roof. So for me, 3 weeks after my lieutenant incident, we have this fire and we have to go on the roof. Now, my new lieutenant was a go-getter, and he was raring to go. And I was trying to pull him back because, like I said, we had new protocols of roof extrication or roof procedures, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so wanted to make sure that we adhere to those guidelines, but he was raring to go. And I knew better. I told him I knew better. And we didn't completely follow those protocols. And when our chief showed up at the scene, we got a chewing.
And were you kind of, when you're getting, like we'd get locked up or something like that, were you just kind of looking at him out of the corner of your eye going, see, this is what I was trying to tell you.
Yeah, and I got the brunt of that because I was the senior guy there.
Even though he was outranked you.
Even though he outranked me, but I had probably 15 years on him. And my chief officer told me, Milt, you know better. And which I did. And so, like I said, and I was hesitant to get on that roof. Not because of what happened to Lieutenant, but also because of the condition of that structure.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to get up there, do our jobs, and get off.
So that's actually a very interesting topic that we could go down that rabbit trail for a while. But how did the relationship between the two of you progress after that, or did it?
Well, to this day, we were very good friends.
Okay, so that's good.
He has a wife and 2 girls, similar to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have 4 kids, but I have 2 of my own.
Right.
And I felt a sense that I needed to look after him because I did not want to have to look at his wife and his kids' face and say, yeah, this happened and this is why it happened.
So you put some of that timid nature aside and said, we got to do it right.
We got to do it right.
And was he, I mean, a good leader at that point will assess things and say, it doesn't matter how heavy my collar is compared to yours. If you're right, I need to acknowledge that. And it sounds like he did.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a great story in and of itself, because there are so many situations that happen like that. I mean, the fact that he's a go-getter, that's good, because he's going to be pulling, he probably pulled you a little bit out of your comfort zone because of your experiences. But then the fact that you can kind of counterbalance that and say, hey, not too far, because I know the result if you're not careful. I mean, that's a good story. And that's one that I think a lot of people don't understand when life and death is not at stake. And, I mean, I think we've all got countless stories like that in the business world, where that happens. And there's nothing if the stakes aren't high enough, everybody just wants to say, I outrank you and we're going to do what I say do. So.
And trust me, there's been some incidents where we've had senior guys at the scene, and an officer comes in and he wants to do a job a certain way, and we know better. Someone asked me this the other day about it, and they said, if someone was doing something wrong, how would you handle it? no matter their rank. And I'd say, tell them, look, we're not going to do this. I don't care who you are. We're not going to do it this way, and I'll suffer the consequences later. But sometimes, and you may have to, somebody else over there and say, hey, we need to relieve this person. Now, listen, I'm not saying that the fire department has those individuals that do it, but sometimes, in an incident, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, if you will.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And then there's protocol, and there are times we've had individuals that want to operate or skirt. I don't want to say operate outside the protocols, but they want to skirt the procedures, if you will. I think that's a better way to put it. And I have a lot of respect for those who go by the book. And we say, well, I don't want to work with somebody who's always by the book. Well, after you've experienced what I've experienced, you understand why those are strictly by the book.
Well, and the book is, to me, the book is like the way you said it, a lot of people hear by the book and it's a negative thing. The book was written as a stepping off point. The book was written as a guide, but it can never take the place of a human being looking at something and assessing it and saying, okay, the book got me to this point, but the book didn't really bring up this part of it. So now I got to use my own intelligence here to maneuver, through something. And I think some people, it's easy to just throw the book out because then you're not accountable to anything. So I agree with you. I mean, by the book is very important.
Yeah. Now, sometimes I'm not saying, you hear always rules are meant to be broken. Mm-hmm. And trust me, there are some times the rules were broken.
Sure.
I was off duty when one day, this was probably around about 1993, 94.
Mm-hmm.
Not far from my in-laws' home over in Oak Cliff.
Okay.
There was a structure fire. I was off duty and I'm driving by and I see this house burning and someone yells out, there's someone in the house. So automatically, I have no firefighting gear. I have no air tank. And I jumped out of my car. I ran to the front door and my wife was sitting in the passenger seat and she's yelling at me not to go in. But I'm in automatic mode.
Sure.
So I ran to the front door. I got down on my hands and knees, which is what we're taught. And I start crawling into the house. Now there's smoke billowing out of the front door. There's fire leaping out of one of the windows. And I'm yelling to see if someone's in the house. I could hear the sirens from the fire engines coming, but I thought, I need to do this. However, I didn't make it all the way in. I got pushed back by the smoke and the flames, and I came out. Now, is that the way to do it? Not really. If I had my firefighting gear, and if I was on duty, we would have gone in, search and rescue, but we also would have had means of backup with us in case the fire got fire's already out of control, but in case it got to a point where we needed to evacuate and start fighting the fire. So there are times that we do go in and we go into search and rescue mode before we actually start attacking the fire, but we do have backup modes behind us. So, that was a
close
rule.
The loop on that story though. What happened?
So I'm saying that I actually ended up having to back out because I knew it was too dangerous to be in there with no type of protective gear on.
Yeah, the smoke would have hit your lungs.
The smoke would have hit my lungs. The gases, the heat, kill you before the flames do.
Okay, so you made an honest attempt to do what was right. Then you hear the sirens coming, assess the situation. You back out, which all sounds to me like something that I think that I would hope a lot of people would do. So did your brothers get there and were they able to save this person?
Well, the person was not even at home. So they were able to put the fire out and save the structure.
But there was
no one home.
So your wife was probably not real happy when she found that.
Not at all.
But I mean, I give you full credit. I mean, because that is the perception of firefighters. They go into the danger.
Yeah.
That's the perception of the military. We go into the danger. And I say perception, although it's really a reality.
Mm-hmm.
because that's the way we're trained. We're not trained to sit on the sideline and observe. We're trained to identify a threat and neutralize that threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's obviously what you were doing.
Yeah.
So what would you say is one of the big misperceptions about firefighters and maybe just firefighting in general?
Oh, wow. Let me think about that for a second. I probably would think, say that, that we rush in without thinking, without doing, without knowing. Because I hear it a lot. This is, well, man, y'all seem like y'all just so unorganized when y'all get to a scene. And I said, on the contrary, I call it organized chaos. That's exactly what I call it. You know the term Chinese fire drill?
Yeah.
So that's sometimes what it looks like, if you will, if you know what that term means. But
I'm going to have to go back and study the origin of that.
But it's one of at a live fire scene, each and every individual at that fire knows what they're supposed to be doing. And trust me, you may have, just say on a single alarm fire, which is what we call a single alarm, is that you have.
Is that one station or one truck?
That's actually a multiple stations, but you'll have 6 pieces of equipment. You'll have 3 engines, you have 2 trucks, and you have a fire chief.
So a single alarm fire is composed of 6 pieces of equipment.
And that will involve multiple stations. That may involve 3, 4 stations.
So what are the different levels? You've got, single alarm and
you have all the way up to 6 alarms. So you have 1 alarm, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then of course after that you have what they call signal 17, which means that's the call to off-duty personnel, which that's only happened a few times in my history or in my career, the fire department, when you have off-duty personnel coming in.
So I mean that's like catastrophic. That's like 9/11 type.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so is there anything, I know this may sound like a stupid question, but is there anything below a single alarm, or is there always 6 pieces of equipment at a minimum that are going to show up?
So when a fire call comes in, if it's involving a structure or if it's involving a large grass fire or a large tanker, something like that, that'll be something that's bigger than normal.
Okay.
You will initially get a 1 alarm response, 3 engines, 2 fire trucks. And the difference is that when people always say, oh, I saw a fire truck today. Well, an engine, they carry water, they carry the hose, the tack lines. Fire truck was one with the big ladders on the back of them. And they carry equipment and they have the big ladder. And of course, the chief, he shows up in a Suburban and he has all types of equipment, logistics, stuff on his vehicle. Okay,
so yeah, you were talking about the misperception is that you get there and you rush right in,
right?
And you said something earlier I wanted to kind of talk about, and that was when Lieutenant Crodel, the fire where he passed, you said that if I understood the way you were describing it, it was almost as if y'all don't show up with a specific plan. You have a playbook was where my mind was going. And based on what you assess, you call a play.
Right.
It's probably a pre-rehearsed. It's probably, everybody, like you said, everybody has a place to go and everybody knows where they're going. But it's like, we're going to call Red Dog 35 on 2 or whatever the case may be. And that's what you're assessing it before you call that play. Is that correct?
Right. So, for example, this is a 2-story apartment complex, and it's a building composing of a number of structures. And what we were going to be faced with was being able to get close enough to that particular structure so that we could deploy certain equipment. So that's what we were discussing en route to the fire. When we realized that we actually had a fire, a working fire, we were talking about where we were going to place our equipment, how we were going to deploy it, and make entry. And of course, our fire chief, when we get there, he's going to actually give us the exact orders of what he wants us to do. But we actually have a plan in our head before we get there, just in case he's not there. Because a lot of times our fire chief won't be there before we get there. So, and with our lieutenant being on the truck equipment, he may be the ranking officer who's going to be giving everybody instructions. So, and if you will, so let's say we have a structure fire. Let's just say a house fire, single family dwelling, 1 story. We get there. The first arriving engine crew is going to pull up. He's going to report out with what he has. So we call that a size up. And they do that so that everybody that's coming has an idea of what's going on before they get there.
Okay.
Second incoming engine just got to stop at a fire hydrant and bring them water. Even though they have 800 gallons of water on the fire engine, they're going to need more.
How fast does that 800 gallons go?
Oh boy,
I bet you it goes
within 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I couldn't give you the specific GPMs that are coming out of those, but I'll let you know it's coming out fast and in a hurry. So second incoming engine stops to get water. There's 4 guys on each equipment, right?
Okay.
So that first engine, they're going to deploy fire attack lines. They're going to say, let's just say engine 26, which is the station where we were assigned. Engine 26 is out. We got a 1-story frame. We got fire coming out of the roof. Engine 26 is passing command, which means that the next crew comes in. They're going to assume command, and engine 26 is going to make a quick attack. So engine 26 is out. 1-story frame, a lot of fire coming out of the roof. We're passing command, make a quick attack. Second incoming engine, bring us water. So then, second incoming engine, they stop at hydrant, they bring water. The truck company, my lieutenant, where we were, truck 26 is out. Truck 26 is assuming command. So now my lieutenant is the incident commander. Myself and another individual, he tell us, hey, I want you guys to go to the roof if we have to go to the roof. So then we'll make a decision who's going to go to the roof. Another guy's going to go and he's going to grab equipment to help the guys on the inside. So in the middle of all that, there's 2 other guys that are deploying another attack line. They're the backup, just in case something goes down that we're not expecting. So they're going to be part of the rescue crew. And then so forth and so on. Other companies show up and they are deployed as they're needed. And there's protocols for them as well.
So when you talk about going to the roof, I mean, it sounds like you've always got somebody on the roof, but it sounds like that's the most dangerous place. What is the purpose of going to the roof?
So, and as far as I said, it is the most dangerous place to be because there's always hidden dangers,
right,
in a structure fire. When you're on the roof, fire burns up, not down. So the purpose of going to the roof is if there are guys inside, they're definitely in imminent danger.
Sure,
because there could be flashovers. That's where superheated gases catch fire, and it just flashes from one point to another point.
Yeah, but it also blows up.
That's called a backdraft.
Yeah.
So, how to alleviate flashovers and backdrafts? Crews are sent to the roof to cut a hole because smoke, heat, and gases.
Gotcha. Relieve some of the pressure.
Right. So, and we cut a hole in the roof so we could evacuate that danger.
Okay. So you were talking earlier about something that made me think. Did you ever see the movie Gangs of New York?
No, I have not ever seen that. I start watching and I always stop.
It's a good movie. It really is. But I'm pretty sure it was Gangs of New York. Where they where they have competing, fire departments, and so back in the I'm sure I'm giving you history that you already know, but back in the day when fire departments were not part of the municipalities, they were actually privately owned. And so
that's a new one.
And so I don't know who owned it, but they would show up, and sometimes 2 competing fire departments would show up, and they would basically blackmail the homeowners into paying them so they'd put out the fire. Well, sometimes they never even got to that because they were competing with each other. They'd get into fisticuffs. in the middle of the street. And if you've not seen or studied any of that, it is unbelievable that we were ever, I mean, because, I'm listening to the way that you're describing it now, an engine 26, and we do this, and we do, I mean, it's just like so precise and by order. You got to go back and research some of that, because it is the craziest stuff I've ever seen.
I think I will. And it's what's ironic about that is that the city's laid out in districts.
Okay.
So you know how you have District 1 all the way to District 10, maybe District 9, I can't remember now. But because I'm retired.
You don't have to know that anymore.
When a fire call comes in, and say if it's at a certain section of our district, well, you have a station over here, and then you may have a station 3 miles away. So, and they're going to get that call as well. So, and this is just the reality. When that fire call comes in, you may have 2 fire engines racing to that scene to be first, because they want to be the one to get there and put the fire out. And that's quite a bit competitive.
But at least you guys aren't going to blows in the middle of the street while somebody's trying to negotiate with the homeowner what they're going to pay them to put the fire out.
No, I don't think that's, well.
It was a dark time in American history, but I actually, when I saw that, I went and started researching it. And I think it was in that movie. But I have seen, as a student of history, I've seen it in other places.
Right.
And it's just not our finest moment. But it's good to see that the fire department, although still competitive,
right,
has the interest of the homeowners at heart. Hence your reason for going into that one structure.
And the city of Dallas is one of those departments where we do what we call interior attacks. And there's some departments that do not do interior attack.
Interior attacks? That
means they go into the structure that's burning and put the fire out from the inside.
Okay.
Now you have some municipalities around the city of Dallas that's the structure is not worth life.
Mm-hmm.
It said, let it burn, and we will put it out from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But we are an aggressive fire department, progressive and aggressive, to where we enter the structure. And most large municipalities, that is the way they approach structure fires. They go in and they put them out from the inside.
And that's how the city of Dallas is.
And that's how the city of Dallas is.
But would you say that most big cities are like that?
I'd probably say every last one of them are that way.
Okay.
But then you have smaller municipalities, and I won't call any of those out, but one of the communities that I lived in, house 4 blocks from me burned to the ground because they decided, hey, we're not going in here, 2-story house. We're going to just deploy our attack lines from the outside, and we're just going to protect the exposure and make sure nothing else burns down.
I'm assuming there were no people in there at that point.
You would be correct.
Okay, so they were able to verify that before they said, we're not going to risk our firefighters' lives. Okay.
Now, I'm saying that those guys wouldn't go in if somebody was in there. They definitely would go in.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's just a structure burning, nobody's in, no imminent danger, they'll let it burn. They'll just put it out from the outside. Correct.
So I want to hear, we've touched on, a couple of your, couple of instances that happened to you that are on one extreme end of the spectrum. What would you, if I ask you, what is the most gratifying, can you point to one of the most gratifying moments as a fireman, as a firefighter? Could you easily identify that?
Oh, yes. I actually have a couple. So I was a paramedic for 13 years of my 33 years. I was a paramedic. When a guy had a heart attack, and he was unconscious and not breathing when we reached him, and we had to perform CPR on him, and we got him to the hospital, and we brought him back. So that's very gratifying, and he lived to tell about it. And he was very grateful. He'd come to visit every single holiday and bring us Christmas dinner.
Did he really?
Absolutely. He did that until he actually ended up passing away from old age. He was in his 50s when that happened. I want to say he probably died in his mid to late 70s. So we got to see him 20-some odd years. And of course, bringing life into the world. I've been able to deliver a number of babies.
Have you really?
New Year's Eve, had to ride the ambulance. And I had recently became a father myself a few months earlier. And New Year's Eve, we had a lady who was about to
It was time.
deliver. And we thought, okay, we'll get her to the hospital and, get her in labor and delivery, and they'll deliver the baby. But that baby was not going to wait. And we ended up delivering that baby in the back of the ambulance as we were driving to the hospital. And I was able to carry that baby out of the ambulance into the hospital.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, were you able to watch your children's birth? I mean, were you there?
Oh yeah. I was there.
Is that not one of the most remarkable? I mean, when you think about, listen, I know people, people, they don't believe in God. They don't, whether they're agnostic, atheist, you cannot witness the birth of, especially of your own child, and not feel like there has to be a supreme being. I mean, I personally can't.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the coolest things, it just, the head kind of, it's a little raisin, then it pops out into a grape. I mean, that's just cool. And you got to give birth to several, well, not give birth, that sounded like you did it, but that is cool.
The mother does all the work. We we just catch it.
Well, good catch.
But it's interesting you say that. I saw my baby girl delivered at a cesarean. So I would, there were times when they would allow the father to, assist in the delivery.
I don't think I'd want to do that.
And no, I didn't want to do that either. But she was delivered cesarean, and I was so excited watching that whole procedure that forgot about my wife. So, and I had to be reminded that my wife was still there with us, because I followed once she was delivered, followed her over to the table where they do all of their measurements and whatnot, vital statistics. And someone said, your wife is calling you over there. I never heard her calling me. So,
it's hysterical.
I was too enthralled with what was going on over at the table with my daughter.
Well, let's hope she didn't remember that. Let's hope she was under anesthesia at that point, huh?
She remembered.
She remembered. Of course she did. Wow. Okay. So you spent 13 years as a paramedic, and I mean, those are two really unbelievably cool stories.
Yeah.
I applaud the gentleman that he remembered y'all every year, because not everyone does that. And so, you obviously saw a lot of things as a paramedic. To me, that is one of the most unsung. People just don't realize. I mean, those guys get paid nothing. And yet they are facing, not necessarily they're not necessarily facing danger, although sometimes we know that can be the case, but they are facing death at every turn. And I've always looked at that and thought, man, I don't know that I could do. I mean, I've got I'm able to compartmentalize things pretty easily, but that just seems like, was it depressing? I mean, it seems like that would be one of the more depressing things that you could do.
Is to
you're around negative things all the time.
Yeah.
Now you've got a couple of great stories there, and maybe that's what puts things in perspective.
So we started talking the story about, me becoming a firefighter, and it was a job that was available. I had no idea what this job was about. I just knew that when I saw what they were going to pay me, I said, oh yeah, I want to do this. And so, I knew nothing about how we worked, the 24 hours on and 48 hours off. I knew that we had to race to a scene and put a fire out. And going through the academy is when I started learning everything. Well, not everything, but a good portion about what it took to be a firefighter. And because my idea was I was going to go to the fire department, and I was going to work there for a few years, and then I was going to do something else. And I realized that I liked what I did. Now, and it's not just fighting fires, because fighting fires, like I said, is a healthy fear of fighting fire. But being a paramedic, being able to help somebody in their time of need. When somebody's structure is on fire, I don't get gratification of saying, oh, wow, I just put a fire out. I get gratification of saying, I just saved this person's house. There's times that we're not able to save it, and they lose everything. And there's no gratification in somebody losing all of their stuff.
Right.
So, helping somebody in their time of need, whether it's being a paramedic, whether it's it's not this get the cat out of the tree thing, but
that's where I thought you were going to go when I was asking you about the misperceptions.
no, that is trust me, we've had those incidents. We've had them. We've had those incidents, but this is a quick story. We get a call 3-4 o'clock in the morning. It's February. It is super cold outside, and the wind is blowing 20-30 miles an hour and gusting at 40-50 miles an hour. And a little old lady called us, and she said, "There's something in my attic, and I'm afraid it's going to come down into the house. Can you guys help me get it out?" And so we go up into the attic. 2 of us go up into the attic, and we're looking around. We don't see anything, but we could hear this noise, and it is making this loud screech. And it turns out it's her turbines. They're just spinning, and the ball bearings had gone bad, and it's making this god-awful noise. And so we got up on the roof. We took a trash bag and tied it around it, stopped it. And then we sat there and talked to her for about another 10 minutes because she lived there alone.
Yeah.
And she was so thankful. And of course, the next day she come by the station, or the next shift she come by the station, she brought us cookies. And we had that happen a lot, where someone is thankful for what we've done for them. They come by, they want to reward us. But our reward for us is that we were able to help somebody. And that's one of the stories. I have a lot of stories, but there's those ones I'm telling you now. Those are the ones that are in my head, and I can bring them up, without having to think long about them.
Well, but I think too, the story you just told about this woman, she lives there by herself. That was healthy for her. I mean, that human interaction, she probably doesn't get it the way she used to. And, that's one of the really unfortunate aspects of what's happened during COVID. I mean, we're social animals. We need this.
Yes, we do.
And, you probably breathed a little fresh air of life into her just by spending those 10 minutes. She probably thought that was the kindest thing anyone had done for her in quite some time. Now, I would have taken WD-40 up there because, I mean, there's a reason for that wind turbine, but that's,
yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, let me shift gears a little bit here. So you get involved in Carry the Load in 2013. It's been you've been a tremendous ambassador for us. The Crodal Foundation, been a fantastic partner. But you got to go out onto the relay in 17, was it?
That was 2017, yes.
Where did you go?
So we started in New York. We started in Central Park.
Yeah, and I should probably set this for everybody before you start there. So for those who aren't aware, our relay is basically about bringing awareness, and it's like the Olympic torch. I mean, we start in now 5 different locations, I think, this year. And it's just a tributary of trails down into Dallas where we kick off the actual Memorial Day event. So you went out on the East Coast relay and started in Central New York, correct?
We started in Central New York, yes.
Okay. Central Park, I should say.
Right. And we made our way down to where I guess it's J.P. Morgan Chase buildings. Where we met up with a large group of people from Chase. And
they're always so good about coming out and supporting.
Yes. And we walked from, I should say, when we started at Central Park, we were on a bus. And then we caravan down to Chase, where we met up with about, 300-400 people from Chase. And then we walked from there down to Ground Zero. And now they have those, I guess they're reflection pools, whatever. I'm not sure what they call those. But we're down there, and it was so quiet and so serene down there. I mean, and New York, we're in Manhattan. And so if you've ever been to New York, you know how loud and busy it is.
Yes.
when we were down there, it just was quiet, serene. There was peace. There was absolute peace there to where, 16, 15 years earlier, there was chaos.
Yes.
So, that was extremely eye-opening. We went there. And of course we left there and we ended up over in Philadelphia, and over at, by where the Liberty Bell is.
Okay.
So that was that whole experience it was wonderful. It was inspiring. It was motivating.
It really is. I use the word, I use the emotion of hope. It gives you, there's so much negativity out there, but those are just the people who are loud, because the majority of people who aren't as loud, there's some good people in this country. There's some really good people in this country. And when the people that see what we do with that relay and that take the time to stop and say, hey, what are y'all doing? And you tell them, and they just, I remember there was a guy, and I don't remember where it was. This guy pulled up in his car, and I think he lived out of his car, and it was a mess. And so if you look at it by an appearance, this guy had nothing, and what he had was trashed by most people's standards. And he said, what's going on here? And we told him. And he reached into his back seat and pulled out, I don't know how much money, but it probably would have gotten him to the next gas station, which was a lot of money based on appearance. And he didn't even think twice. And he said, y'all are doing good things. And when you see things like that, when you witness things like that, and I'm sure you did, it gives you hope. And to me, it helps drown out the bad that's just so elevated every day because they're loud enough.
So to piggyback off of what you just said about that, walking from Midtown, I guess that's Midtown, where we were,
yes.
down to Ground Zero, people were stopping us and saying, well, hey, what are y'all doing? Y'all protesting? What are y'all protesting?
Isn't that crazy that that's their first thought?
Right. Because they said in New York, when they see a large group of people marching, they're protesting. And if you will, when we were down there, the sanitation people were on strike. So, and they were out protesting. So when we would tell people what we were doing, we started picking up people walking with us.
That's awesome.
And some would walk to a point, and then they'd stop, and then others would walk all the way down to Ground Zero with us. And they were super excited, and some said they wanted to do it again the following year. And that's kind of how I felt when I did it in 2013 for the first time. And I had a total of us of 10. And the following year I did 50. And the year that I kept adding more and more to the pot. And, each year, the times after it's over with, you're tired, you're exhausted, but you feel a sense of gratification and you want to recuperate. But then when it kicks off the following year, it starts to pick up steam and you become more inspired.
People have no idea how energizing that is to a Gold Star family member or the Crodels. I mean, Mr. Crodel, when one of the first times I met him, the appreciation that was in his eyes, I'll never forget it. I know everyone who is a part of the family and extended family felt the same way. But, as a father, I could not imagine losing my son before I left this world. And so just watching his reaction and seeing how heartfelt his reaction was, that we still cared and we still appreciate that his son put his life ahead of others. That's what Carry the Load is all about. And it is very healing. You talked about that earlier. You needed to heal.
Yeah.
And so, I was really glad to hear you say that, because that's, whether we set out with that intention or not, that's become the byproduct.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Crodel, they're no longer with us anymore. We lost Mr. Cordell was it last year? I can't remember.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Mrs. Cordell, we lost her the year before in 20, and then we lost Mr. Cordell last year, I believe.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was last year. This COVID has really thrown my timeline off.
Yeah.
But the foundation was inspiring for them because it kept their son's legacy alive. And that's one, and certainly through Carry the Load, we're able to grow our foundation and keep the legacy of Lieutenant Todd Boeding alive. And what he meant, not just to the department, but to people, because he was a very strong family man and he had a strong sense of community. And so with that, and one of the things we do is that, we give scholarships out. So we're giving multiple scholarships every year, to those who probably wouldn't have a chance to go to college. Not say every one of them, but certainly some of those that probably don't have the means. And then we also started a couple of years ago, we started a special needs scholarship because listen, we don't want to forget about, those families. And we have firefighters who have children with special needs. And so now we have that scholarship going as well.
That is awesome. Y'all are doing great work.
Right. And that helped, all of that, what we were doing, helped the Crodels heal. Carry the Load, Crodel Foundation, our fire family, all helped them to heal.
Do you miss it?
Fire department?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
What do you miss about it?
Oh, man, the family, the camaraderie. Always tell people all the time that the fire department is the largest family in the world. There's nowhere we can't go where we meet firefighters and we sit down and we can commune with each other. Like I said, one of the things that Lieutenant Cordell and I used to do in the mornings is we'd sit down and we'd have conversations over coffee. But we have a kitchen, big long table like this, seats around it, we eat dinner, we commune, we talk, we discuss things, we argue. But in the end, we're family.
So police department, fire department have a pretty healthy competitive spirit.
Oh, yeah.
I know a few that would probably contradict what you just said, and they would say that they are the largest family in the world.
I tell them to prove it. Yeah. I tell them to prove it because we lived together a third of our lives. 33 years, a third of my 33 years, I lived with these guys. I eat, drank, and slept with these guys.
Yeah, and when you talk about eating, I mean, because that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really, really valid point. But you were also you did a lot of the cooking, didn't you?
I did all the cooking.
You did all the cooking.
Let's see. I'm going to say I when I was a paramedic, I didn't cook as much because I was always on the ambulance, and we were going quite a bit. Ambulances are super busy in the city of Dallas. When I was not on the ambulance, on the days off, because we don't ride the ambulance every single day, I would cook. And then when I actually cycled out of the rotation of being a paramedic, I became the full-time cook at the fire station.
Okay.
And so I did that.
What's your go-to meal?
Chicken.
Yeah?
Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy.
Oh,
that was one of the first meals I learned to cook at the fire station, because if you do not have enough meat, if you do not have a good carb, you're going to get roasted.
Okay. Okay.
And trust me, there was I'm going to be nice. I'm going to say it was a learning curve. And I remember some of the agitation, and some of the agitation wasn't so good, that I put some meals on the table that were not fruitful.
So they
That's
just
a good way of
sat
putting it. You said they sat there? No, I distinctly remember
they were consumed
doing
with
a
disdain.
salad, and I called it a garden chef salad. And one of my coworkers, who's a really good friend of mine, by the way, he said, "I'm going to tell you what I think about your garden chef salad," which is no meat was in it, right? So he made him a big plate of it, and he slathered it with dressing, and he walked over to the trash can, and he dumped the entire plate the food and the fork into the trash can and said, "This is what I think about your garden chef salad." So I learned.
That's brutal.
Oh, it was very brutal. And trust me, I was angry. I was angry.
Was he just trying to get a rise out of you, or was
No,
he having a bad
not.
day?
He was not happy because he wanted meat.
Oh my goodness.
So, and I ended up standing on top of the kitchen table and daring him to come at me.
That's when everybody kind of steps in and says, all right,
easy, big boys. And trust me, we were two big guys.
Oh my gosh.
This guy was a former running back at the University of Tulsa.
Oh, really?
And he could run through a brick wall back in the day.
And you said, I'm a former defensive lineman and safety, so let's get this out in the open right now.
I probably would have lost that battle though, because he at that point he outweighed me then. So, but so
who cooks at home, you or your wife?
I do. My wife doesn't cook, not much.
Let's hope she doesn't watch this part of it.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, she will, and she knows it. So, yeah. So,
okay, okay. So, chef as well, man.
Yeah.
You've got almost that little bit of what was that guy's oh gosh, I'm gonna screw it up, so I won't even go there. Just you got your hand in like a little Renaissance type thing. I mean, you can firefighter, chef. I mean, you got it all going. You play football.
I'm not an idle person.
What else would we find interesting about Milton?
Oh, I like to write.
You like to write.
I used to want to be a writer. I was actually before I started drafting or drawing or architect, if you will.
Okay.
I wanted to be a writer, so I would write.
Okay.
And so I thought I was going to be a poet when I was a kid. Well, I think that's probably to get the girls though. But
yes.
So I would write in the English was my best subject.
Okay.
So but I'd write, and I like to tell small stories. I wrote for the school newspaper, whatnot. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I assume you're a reader as well?
Oh, yes.
What's the last book you read? Or what are you reading now?
Wow. How to Make a Good Brain Great. That's the last book I've read.
How to Make a Good
Brain Great.
How to Make a Good Brain Great.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, I can't tell you who the author is because that's been a while since I've actually read an actual book. But now I read, most of my stuff I read online.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, boy, you can get caught in that trail.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that was the last book. Of course, there's other books like The Purpose Driven Life and all of John Grissom's novels. I love.
Oh yeah.
I love suspense like that.
Okay.
Courtroom drama, detective novels, So Scott Turow and John Grissom and what's the guy from Hunt for Red October?
Tom Clancy.
Tom Clancy.
Oh yeah.
Those books, man, those books they would just drive me to read more and more and more. And so,
yep. Those are two good ones. I read a lot of their stuff. Yeah.
But I got into that book, How to Make a Good Brain Great, because my wife would tell me all the time. She says, "You're losing your mind. You need to start reading more. You need to read more, something to strengthen your brain." So I got into that one.
Oh, I made a comment like that to my wife. She didn't take it quite as well as you took that comment.
Oh, believe me, I did take it well.
My kids will still poke the bear about the comment. And I don't even remember exactly what it was. But I made a comment about, hey, what are you doing for your brain or something like that.
Yeah.
And, man, it was taken the wrong way out of context. So,
yeah.
Well, let me ask you one final question here. Actually, that's a lie. I got two more. How do you describe Carry the Load to people? When somebody says they see your shirt and they go, "Hey, what's that all about?" How do you describe it to them?
So, for me, I tell them that is an organization that is healing the United States or bringing back the true meaning of Memorial Day. And I said, for a lot of us, we never, and myself as well. Memorial Day was a day of celebration. But what are you celebrating? Oh, well, we're celebrating barbecue. It's time to eat. It's time to drink. And 9 years ago, I realized it was more than just that. It was about remembrance, about those that sacrificed. And trust me, Vince Davis died in 2011. I'm sorry, forget that. He died in 2002. Mm-hmm. I get these dates mixed up sometimes, but February the 11th, 2002, he died. Well, there's a whole group of firefighters on the department who never knew Vince Davis, doesn't know his story, doesn't know that he was an Olympian, doesn't know he was a father, husband, and a dedicated man to this country. So I keep his spirit alive as well. And I tell, as a matter of fact, don't carry load, I carry his name as well. And everywhere I go, you know, at that time. And not only that's just that, but just throughout the day. So bringing it back full circle is that I explain to people that we are remembering those who gave all.
Yes.
And we need to continue to remember them long after anything that we're doing.
So when I ask you the question, who are you carrying? It's pretty simple to answer. And that would be Vernon Davis. That would be Vincent Davis. And Lieutenant Todd Crodel.
Lieutenant Todd Crodel, Scott Tanksley, Lucky Harris, Stanley Wilson, Chris Pham, and I can name a few others, but those names are the ones that stick out in my head right now. And these are guys that that we lost over the last 10 years or so.
Well, Milton, thanks for spending some time with me.
I enjoyed it.
I did too. I learned a couple of things about you that I didn't know, and especially the poet. You'd be a poet laureate, huh?
Yeah, that one.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.